It has begun! It's the long-awaited final conflict between David and Farouk in a visually impressive and musically satisfying sequence that leaves David as the apparent victor. But Farouk's manipulations are not so easily cast aside, which leads us to a beautiful, twisty ending that is both shocking and inevitable. It's the final revenge of the Shadow King on the Season 2 finale of Legion, Chapter 19. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final review of the season of Legion. So, of course, all the spoilers are ahead. What an ending. Oh my gosh. It was, like I said, both shocking and completely expected. The way it all sort of landed out, it is a beautiful mapping of how everything was done this season, how all the little steps, all of the little moments played right up to that final twisted bit of manipulation on Farouk's part on David. It was just astounding, and I mean, we're going to be thinking about this for quite some time. But let's jump into the opening, which was, I mean, if you're going to start a show like this with something impressive, I think that opening shot was all that you needed. And I'm not just talking about the choke flying through the air and hitting the ground and stumbling and boom, 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 and then landing right into the ground. Ding. It's placing itself. It was perfect. It was just really, it set the stage immediately for where we are. Which is why I'm calling that first sequence our Scene of the Week for this week. And I know, the first one, what about the ending? Well, that's really more of the scene of the season. Everything was leading up to it. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. But I'm going to open things up with that opening battle because it was perfect. It was Legion in essence. First off, Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. David singing that as he's floating himself towards the battle was just, it set the tone so perfectly. And then we've got Farouk singing back at him in French, I believe. Couldn't totally catch it. My French is really rusty. But since he speaks French, we're going to assume that that's what it was. Coming back at him is kind of like the dueling songs and thoughts was just wonderful. Then we get into that beautiful animated battle, which totally reminded me of Big Trouble in Little China at the end of that. It's one of my favorite films, so of course I'm going to be drawn to it. But how we have the avatars, basically, of Farouk and David coming up and going after each other. But it just starts, it's them, and then it's snakes and dragons, and then it's spiders, and then we just all of the wonderful twisteds back and forth. It was just, like I said, between that and the music was just so beautifully done. And then the shot of Lenny, and I know I had said a couple seasons ago, I'm wondering if Lenny's going to be there not to shoot Farouk, but to shoot the choke and set that off. And that's what she did! I was so excited to see that. Which was just, again, perfect for her. Too much to be going up against Farouk, certainly without the choke being activated. But this shows the extent of David's planning, which I thought was really impressive. I really kind of enjoyed that. So we had just, again, that whole beautiful thing, and I love that shot right down Lenny's barrel as he goes from her and it just opens up and pulls back and gets all the way. I mean, it was just all of it. They spent so much time really visually setting up this sequence. It was just astounding, really super impressive. And then, of course, we get the shot, sets out there, and as David's all wrapped up with the spider webs and everything, and it's sinking in, and you can see that's it, that's Farouk, he's doing the win. And boom, all sort of shakes apart and drops them down, which, of course, leads David to the rock scene and starting to bash in the head, which is what future Sid had told him. A couple of weeks, then you bash Farouk's head in with a rock. So this all plays out. Again, this whole opening scene, it's like, okay, this is it. This is the battle. This is done. I mean, it's, again, visually impressive. Wonderful colors. Of course, we got the greens and the oranges going there, which, if we're doing the Big Trouble in Little China, that was sort of switched. Lopan had the green and Egg had the orange, and here it's Farouk has the orange and David has the green. Good guy, bad guy kind of switch. And it could kind of lay into a lot of our red-green imagery that we've had through the season, and that definitely, I think, does come up later on, especially in that scene between the three Davids. But again, it was just wonderfully done, visually very impressive, and sets us up to, this is it, this is the end, but it's the opening scene. Where are we going to go for the next hour? There's a lot more. And certainly once it switches to that 3 years later, a little bit of a shock. But that leads in, like I said, towards that final ending, which is really all Farouk's doing. You guys know what gaslighting is, right? When you manipulate events in order to make someone feel like they're crazy. Well, that's the beauty of Farouk's plan, because that's exactly what he does, only in some ways a multiple dimension way. Because he manipulates events so that other people think that David's crazy, and then uses those people that thinks David's crazy to convince David that he's crazy, or tries to do that. Which, again, it was just... Farouk has been playing this long game the entire time, the entire season. And this is just where it beautifully all comes up to a head. Certainly as soon as Sid shows up to stop David from bashing in Farouk's head. So already a big win right there, because we know Farouk's head was supposed to be dashed in by David. That's what future Sid said. So in a way, we're already altering the future right here, but nobody really plays in on that idea throughout the rest of the episode, which did sort of catch me by surprise. But yeah, loved Sid showing up with the Minotaur head. We need to talk. I have a gun. The back and forth. As soon as I kill this a-hole, you haven't had a girlfriend. You know, you haven't enough girlfriends to know when a girl says that we need to talk. We need to talk. So not only is he manipulated, this is where she starts to suck that life out of David, create all of those illusions. And it's beautifully done, because she has been convinced so much that there's really nothing that David could say. And that's the wonderful thing about using the truth. As we talked about last week, that's Farouk's battle. He is using the truth. He's using actual images, actual events, but changing or removing the context upon which those are done. For instance, when she does talk about you killed all these people when you attacked Division 3, that wasn't David. David had already given control over to Lenny / Farouk at that point. So it was Farouk that was inhabiting David's body, playing himself off as David, who went in and did that mass murder inside Division 3. So, yes, that is David's body doing those things visually, but Farouk's not telling the whole story. And David, I think, was beautifully perfect in bringing up the whole idea that he's only doing what Sid has told him to do. You know, use your pain, put it on his armor, you know, God loves the sinners and all that stuff. That you have to cross that line, you have to go to the edge. What would you do in order to save love? I mean, it was a beautiful back and forth right there between them, where Sid is just so convinced of this lie, of this false reality that Farouk has built around David in her eyes. And its effects are real. I mean, I think she does at that point lose the love that she had for David, which is devastating for him, of course, because that's really what he's based a lot of all of his decisions and acts and movements on. I mean, that was the other thing. I didn't leave you. You kidnapped me. I mean, this is the thing. This is the truth. But now she is so convinced you can't even listen to that. That's just, again, it's the brilliance of Farouk's plan here. And it does almost cost David his life. Luckily, we have Lenny on the side, and I love that sequence. First of all, she's sucking the smoke out with the dragon, which was great, and then sees that Sid's got a gun on David, and as much as Sid thinks that David's her man, and in some ways is, or was, you know, Lenny's got her own love for David there. Of course, she doesn't really shoot shit. She shoots the bullet out of the air. You know, what are the odds of that? Odds are insane. Doesn't happen. But still, beautifully, totally bought it. Was a whole great, awesome sequence. Which then leads to kind of David's whole internal gaslighting. Again, taking a lot of those ideas and now bringing it into his own doubts and building upon that. And that was, again, another beautiful sequence of the multiple Davids. We have David himself, the red shirt, trying to figure out what's really real, convinced of the love and everything else. Then we have, let's say, a logical David in the green shirt, trying to convince him that, no, you are in fact insane. The whole delusion thing we're bringing up right here. So again, who's right, who's wrong inside of his own psyche? It's not really clear, and there isn't really an actual right or wrong. Especially when we get to flesh shirt guy. That's what it looked like. I don't know if it was tan. Looked like a flesh-colored shirt. Who was trying to convince David that he is a god. And that he doesn't need to listen to anybody because they're just trying to put him away. Again, these multiple ways of David trying to process this information. Is what I believe right? Are they right? Or is, in a way, Farouk right? That dark side, that dark potential craziness there that can say, hey, we don't need to listen to any of their morality, any of this stuff. You're a god. You can do whatever they want. So that was, I mean, again, another beautiful sequence of just the sort of internal battle. And then you got an interesting point because she says, I believe in love, that Sid really loves me. He's like, yeah, well, if she loves you, why did she just try to shoot you? Yeah, that's a good point. And his plan, I don't think, really works well. Again, this is where I think maybe Farouk's belief of it and understanding of David kind of also falls into play, because the plan that he seems to have is just remove those memories off of Sid, which, you know, feeds into his own destruction later on. I mean, first off, we have Carrie later on piecing it together, seeing that sequence and believing that as a treachery. Though in some ways I'm curious how much Carrie has already been turned or manipulated at that point, because he doesn't ask David about it. He doesn't clarify anything. He jumps to a conclusion, which I'm not sure is entirely justified considering everything that they've been in. But the worst damage is what happens with Sid. Because Trial Sid is right. David raped her, effectively. He didn't drug her, but he removed the memories of her belief of what Farouk told her so that she was back in love with him. And what is it that Farouk said? You can't make people fall in love with you. I tried. Okay, that whole sequence where he says, for you, David, again, that's just more of Farouk's nasty manipulations, because you don't with somebody their entire life and then try and say we were trying to make them love you. Farouk, you're messed up. But with Sid, it was a mistake. And even in that whole sequence where he appears before her and is trying to kiss, is like, we don't need the right room anymore, we can do this now. There was an air of desperation. That scene should have made us all very uncomfortable because David was not in a right space there. I didn't like that scene, and I didn't like the choices that he made. It seemed that he was, like I said, it was coming from desperation. He was pushing, he was trying to reinforce this love that he felt that they're supposed to have. And ultimately, that did become his big downfall, because when Farouk manages to overload those little systems there just enough to be able to manipulate a little mouse and all the little words, sends that in, I think that basically just woke Sid up, reminded her of the actual events that happened. I won't say truth, because this starts to get airy. You start to deal in with what the whole final sequence is those competing truths. But certainly, looking back and seeing what David has done, if Sid wasn't feeling comfortable with David there, at that point, it's definitely gone. So yes, the trial of the Shadow King. Well, that's what David thought it was going to be. Not exactly right. When they talk about competing truths, if all the apples are bruised, then the unbruised apple is wrong. Just as the sane man is crazy. And that is exactly what happens in this sequence. All of these manipulations, all of these stories, everything twists around, and the basis of the argument should, to any logical mind, show the insanity of it. I am on trial for things I haven't done yet, for future crimes. Now, this does make me wonder, did the mouse only visit Sid and unlock those memories, or did the Shadow King use that to go and send out to everyone else? Even Fukuyama, who is not supposed to be really vulnerable to those types of things. I gotta kind of think, you know, from a visual standpoint, we just saw the former, but I gotta sort of believe the latter. I mean, one, like I said, Carrie's conviction that David has done something wrong did seem to be a little much, though that was before the whole mouse sequence. Clark, of course, you know, he has already had his concerns. But with Fukuyama, again, that's sort of a surprising bit, that they would be so ready to turn on David. I mean, could it be, is it just from Sid's stories? Is it just from what she told them? Or has it been a little bit more? I gotta think it's more, considering the fact that it's not just David on trial, but Farouk walking in. He is now free. Nobody is paying any attention to him. Of course he has to be behind all of this. And again, playing that sympathy card on David's part of like, oh, this is just seeing that innocent little boy just succumb to revenge. It breaks my heart. Oh, wow. Psychotic a-hole. Seriously. But again, that the whole sequence I thought was beautifully done. It is the exact line. This is, Farouk didn't have to manipulate David. Farouk had to manipulate everyone around David and then let them do the work. Exactly what he does. Farouk doesn't do anything here. He lets everybody else do it. He lets everybody else fall into it. And it's just, I love the sequence. I mean, it was disturbing in many ways because I love David as the hero and I don't want to see everybody turning on him. From a construction standpoint, I thought it was great. First off, I love the whole bubble with the cross kind of atom scene. I mean, again, we get the kind of X sequence that we're getting from X-Men. Also, the atom and the kind of idea, which we have a lot from the opening of the X-Men movies and things. So again, it's visually all very exciting. And David trying to work with them, trying to explain, trying to be his buff, but seeing very quickly that it's not working. I mean, and again, he's not doing himself any favors because he does have these multiple parts of himself that he's been slowly talking to over the season. Now we're seeing visual points of it. So now everybody else is just seeing him crazily talking to himself. That doesn't help his case. Also, once he does kind of have Sid attack him, especially with that whole rape sequence, which puts him down, as he starts muttering that whole, you know, I'm a good person and I deserve to be loved. The exact image that he saw of his crazy self before, when his other logical green-shirted self guy was trying to tell him, this is your delusion. This was actually you, little zombie David, thinking that you deserved all of this and therefore you created a reality around you. You created Sid. And I mean, didn't really create, projected that onto her to justify your own moves. I mean, again, it's so wonderfully done and so dark and twisted. And then it gets to the point, I mean, and I think that was the kind of exciting bit, the end, where he's had this conversation. He's trying to talk logically. He's trying to reach out, and they're just like, look, succumb to medication or we kill you. Put you back in the exact position that you were when the show opened back in the beginning of season 1. Lock you up in a mental institution and drug you up so you're not a threat to anyone else. Is he going to go for that? No. Which is why he leaves. I'm not sure if he went to the dark side with that or just got fed up. Visually, at least, or audibly from his lines, after he's saying, you know, this is it, I've had enough, I'm going. You've had your chance. And then, of course, we see how powerful David is, blowing the thing apart, shooting over to get Lenny, who had already prepped to say, which, again, earlier in the when he jumps into the truck with her after she gets picked up by Division 3, it says, God has a plan for you. I don't believe in God. Well, don't you? You know, that's the God sense inside David going a little too far. It's a little dark, a little dark right there. But again, visually popping up, grabbing her. You want to get out of here? The guards come up, they're shooting, and you just, this shield start. And of course, that final scene, what about Blondie? There ain't no more Blondie. That relationship is done, which does create a lot of questions for the future. Alright, just a couple of small things. One, this scene with Melanie and Oliver 3 years into the future was beautiful. I guess they've hidden their bodies and are living their lives inside the giant ice cube. Love their loss of language skills over this period of time. How long have we been here? Soup? No, it's been much longer than that. It's just also calling Carrie Glasses McLab coat. Very funny. Anyway, it was just kind of a fun way to catch up. I'm excited that they're together, but definitely being out of the body, while it might keep you eternally young and keep you from farting and other gaseous noises, not necessarily so good for your cognitive function. Oh, and of course we did have a little bit more of our red-green imagery going on, especially, of course, with the shirts inside of the multiple David conversation. You know, we had the David that we know wearing the red shirt, who we would normally think, again, that's stop, but is it taught as go, and the one with the green shirt, which is normally go, but green stop. So it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure if normally you would think that one would be right and one would be wrong, and it would be the exact opposite of what we think. I don't know if that actually applies here. I think this deals more with those, you know, competing truth type of ideas. Because the red-shirted David, I think, is right. Sid did love him. She's lost that love, but that's out of because she's been lied to. And he is strong, he is a mutant, and I don't think that he is insane. I mean, it seems like he has been. I mean, he certainly has every reason to have been, and certainly could have been in fighting with the Shadow King all those years, have lost a certain amount of his mind. But all of his actions this season are reasonably correct. It's not that deceptive. Yes, taking away Sid's memory there and so on to try and make it love. The wrong choice right there. But overall, he really has made a lot of logical, I think, sane choices. He is, well, as Noah Hawley had said, the sane man in an insane world. And that's really what that whole final sequence, I think, nails right to the T. He is the only one that's really kind of seeing things right, and everybody else around him has been manipulated. So, again, I'm not sure if the whole red-green shirts there are necessarily correct, or it's just more the point of confusing us and making us question who is right and who is wrong. At this point, the person who would seem to be wrong in the red shirt is the one who is, in fact, actually right. When Fukuyama was watching David and Farouk chat, and then moved to the hallway, and then moved to Sid's room, where she is physically having sex with the projection of David, so you just see Sid's body talking to David. Also a little creepy. The final song at the end of the episode, Cornflake Girl by Tori Amos. And yes, that does also refer back to Lenny's title in her old kickin' pad there, in her old drug den. But so yeah, we've already had a reference to it. Here we get it, sort of the end lyrics. But what is it? This is not happening. Oh, you bet your ass that it is. You bet your life that it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty much right on line with it, which is, again, dealing a lot with that gaslighting for David, which was so beautifully summed up, I think, with Sid's little line to him that you thought you were crazy, and we told you that you're powerful. The truth is that you're both. Accepting that truth that David knows that he is, in fact, a mutant, but overlaying it with the fact that, and you're crazy. It's not one or the other. I think that's the darkest turn in that whole final scene. Oh, and I love Carrie telling Carrie about her battle with the Minotaur. Did I tell you I fought a Minotaur? Yes, in graphic detail. And then going in about the blood, comparing it to, what is it, beef bouillon? sort of how it smelled, not how it tasted. You know, Carrie is kind of new to the whole physical thing and foods and eats. I guess maybe that was an experience for her. Maybe just the wrong experience choice. So that is the end of the season. Where do we go from here? Well, if we listen to future Sid, this is where David turns and becomes dark, which is why they were all putting him on trial for future crimes. Except, like I mentioned before, one major difference with all of that, and that is that Farouk is not dead. Does David make that turn in his acceptance of who he is and rejection of everybody else's reality? Does he turn evil? Does he go out there and still try to be a good person? Now, he's got Lenny with him, which may not be the best influence on choices. But she also, she cares for David in her own way. So maybe that relationship might help spur him to make some right choices. Anyway, we've got a year. We know we have a season 3 coming up. We've got plenty of time before that's going to happen. Plenty of time for speculation. But I am going to assume, of course, that Farouk is still going to play a big battle. This is going to be somewhere down the road. Are they going to jump forward 3 years? Or is this going to take place immediately afterwards? Are we going to see a descent of David? Or are we going to see David as Legion, the world killer, and then Division 3 having to use Farouk to go against him? I don't know. That gets a little dark. But that could lead to Fukuyama becoming officially MODOK, which I'm still pushing. And what the heck happened with Tanami? Is he still up at his head? We haven't seen anything since he reached out to David through the Vermilion and was able to tell him where Farouk's body is. I haven't seen anything since him then. So is he still tied up inside of Fukuyama's mainframe there? Or what? You know, with Farouk around, if he's working with Division 3 and certainly free and moving, I don't really think that they're going to be going in a good direction. So is Sid going to realize her mistake? Is he going to see through the deception? I don't know. Like I said, a lot of possibilities. And the only downside of all of this is we got to wait about a year in order for that to happen. So let's stick together. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up for this week, for this season. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed all of this discussion. I've really enjoyed reading all of your comments, having a little back and forth there. Really makes this job a little more exciting. It's not just me ranting. We get to trade ideas, and you guys have a lot of insights that I miss. So please let us continue to do that. Now, moving forward, we do have 2 more episodes of Westworld that we are covering, and then in about a week and a half, on the 24th, Preacher Season 3 is beginning. It looks like that's going to be the only thing that I'm going to do over the summer. I have piles of work that I've been pushing aside that I haven't been able to get to these past few months, and I'm going to have to use some free time in order to do that. I also have a couple of projects that I do want to make videos of. I do want to get out there a little more specialty stuff that I'm going to need to use this time in order to do that. So hopefully throughout the summer we'll get that. We'll have Preacher reviews. Those will be Monday mornings. It's Sunday night, so Monday mornings I'll have those out. And then hopefully I'll be able to drop 1 or 2 specialty videos over the summer before we get back for our fall. So, like I said, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed this review, as always, go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, what you guys think of the season? Total gaslighting for David? Where do you think things are going to go? Let me know. Throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're just catching this now, got a whole season of reviews you can check out. Plus, like I said, Preacher's coming up this summer. This fall, we're going to have the return of The Gifted. A few more things. Got to see sort of when things are laying out, time-wise, especially with the cable shows. Not always the same time every year as we're seeing. So I'll have to sort of see where things are laying out. But keep an eye on the channel, and I'll do another small fall preview during the summer so we can see what is coming up. Anyway, but yeah, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. That's this button right here. And I'll go ahead and throw up and see a link to the whole season of reviews right here for Legion, plus something else that we've done recently. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.